Hello again. Thank you for watching Northwestern Dream TV. I'm your host, Gessner, and welcome to part 2 of this video series about using ram snares for catching coyotes here in Saskatchewan. Okay, during the last video, we took a look at some of the supplies that you would need in order to get your line started. So I'm hoping that some of those supplies arrived in the mail here for you. Okay, and as we mentioned in the last video, some of the supplies that you're going to need here are your 1/16 inch cable, your 1/16 inch double ferrules, small heat treated nuts, and your 280 pound Sullivan S hooks. As I mentioned before, here's our number 1 coyote ram. Okay, there we have it. Okay, and these are the factory leads right here. And these are just too thin, so I don't use these anymore, so just get rid of them. You're going to need some basic tools in order to put these snares together, so you're going to need some wire cutters. You'll need your 18 gauge wire. You'll need a tape measure. You'll need a hammer. And you'll need either a swager or something similar that you can use to cut up to 1/8 inch thick aircraft cable. Now these are just what they call rope cutters from Princess Auto. So that's all I use, so whatever works for you, but you'll need to cut at least up to 1/8 inch thick aircraft cable. I like to make 4 packs at a time. If you get too many in the back of your truck at once, they get covered in scent or scratched up or tangled up or whatever, so I usually leave mine hanging in a tree at home until I'm ready to use them, so I just make little 4 packs, and that way I just grab 4 at a time. So start off by taking your aircraft cable and your tape measure and cut 47 inch strands. Okay, you'll need 2 of these little double ferrules per snare. You'll need 1 Sullivan S hook per snare. And you'll need 1 small heat treated nut per snare. Next, you take one of your double ferrules and slide the cable through the opening. And you take one of your Sullivan S hooks and slide it through the opening, and then you loop your cable back through into the other end of the double ferrule and pull it tight. I'm going to show that again here. Next, you take one of your small heat treated nuts and slide the cable through the nut first. Then you take another double ferrule and slide the cable through it. Then you loop the cable back around, back through the double ferrule, and leave about 2 or 3 or so inches hanging out the end of the double ferrule. You'll put that into the nut later on. Okay, so there's the other end. We'll show that again here. Now you need to pound these double ferrules flat, so pull it tight as you can and hold the end of it with your finger, your thumb, and start pounding it flat. There you have it, that's what it should look like. And we'll show another one here. Pound it flat. And there we go. Now you take the other end of the cable, the end where the heat treated nut is on, and you do the same thing with the double ferrule. You pull it tight, then you pound it flat, keeping just a small loop at the end of your cable. But you got to leave about 2 or 3 inches of cable hanging out so you can thread that into the nut. I hold the nut with one hand and I twist the entire snare into the nut with the other hand, just like so. In the end though, you need the double ferrule to be about 1.5 inches or so away from that heat treated nut, and then I use a bench vise just to flatten that nut in place. So there you have it. We'll show this one more time. Start with the double ferrule. Pound that flat. Then you twist the end of the cable into the heat treated nut so that the nut is about 1.5 inches away from the end of the double ferrule. And then I use a bench vise to flatten the nut. Now you can just pound it flat with a hammer too, but I use a bench vise because I find it a little bit easier. So, and there you go. Now that we have both ends of the snare complete, now all you need to do is simply grab your Sullivan S-hook and put the cable through the opening of the S-hook. Then take a pair of pliers or a hammer or use your vise to close off the end of that Sullivan S-hook like so. And there we go, that's pretty well it. Here they are. As I said, I like to make 4 packs, so here we have 4 snares. One of the last steps is to take your 18 gauge wire and cut it into 4 strands of 8 inches each. Now you take one of these wires and your pair of pliers and you make a little J at the end of the wire, just like this. Okay, now you insert the J of the wire into the loop end of the snare cable, and then you wrap the wire around the end of the snare wire, like so. You gotta make sure to leave space between the double ferrule and the heat treated nut, and then you wrap the wire around the end of the cable like this. I'll explain the purpose of this in video 3. So here we are, 4 snares ready to go. There's only one thing left to do, and that's take a can of trim-clad rust paint, flat white, and spray them to match the snow. Now we should have all the equipment we need here ready to go start snaring some coyotes. Thank you for watching part 2 of this video series. Now that we have our snares built, join us for part 3 where we put these things into action. Join us next time on Northwestern Dream. I'm your host, Gessner.